All right, I'm gonna try to explain curvature, space-time, and gravity. Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein's theories, and see how they both can be right, depending on what we're talking about. All right, for Isaac Newton, invisible gravity is an invisible force pulling masses together. Einstein, the bending of the fabric of space-time. Uh, Isaac Newton's speed, instantaneous, infinite speed. For Einstein, travels at the speed of light. Effects, Isaac Newton on light. Light is unaffected since light has no mass. Einstein, light bends to follow curved space. Isaac Newton, everyday. All right, that's that, right? Now, what we perceive as the force of gravity is actually just objects moving through this warped space-time. Okay, that's what they say, right? All right, now, what I'm going to go to my notes is on this. Now, in outer space, there's may be an invisible fabric an invisible fabric that exists in the universe that's causing the planets to orbit the way they do. Like they use, like if you had a trampoline and you put a bowling ball and you try to shoot a marble across, it's not going to shoot across, and probably the speed can make it shoot straight across or not. But it's not going to shoot straight across. It's going to come back down. But you probably can shoot it straight across if you shoot it fast enough. So they, you know what I'm saying, they probably left out speed on that. So you probably can shoot it straight across, but it probably won't because of the pull, right? Of the weight of the bowling ball and the way the fabric bends, and the marble is going to be attracted to it, right? Now, they always talk about gravity being a pulling, but what about a pushing? And gravity is supposed to be something like where objects attract each other. But what if they don't? Like, say for instance, gravity may be just a thing that has to exist with something falling or something of that nature, rather than them calling it gravity, everything gravity on Earth, right? Because if I put an apple on the ground, there's no visible fabric there. The concrete is the material in which the apple sits on, but nothing as far as gravity, as far as attracting to it, unless it's use telekinesis or something, is going to be pulled towards it. Or so let somebody push it towards something, or push something towards it, or an invisible force does it, telekinesis or something. The object is just going to sit there and be surrounded by other objects that never touch each other. So gravity may have to do with the force of just things falling down. Maybe, I don't know. And then, you know, as I pull from this angle, you could be pushing from this angle. And as I push from this angle, you could be pulling from that angle. So you mix and blend that too. So what I'm trying to say is, all right, let me see, how can I say this? Now, I believe, you know how they say, why did the apple fall straight to the ground and not from sideways or stay in the air? All right. Now, non-gravity may be in outer space and gravity is on Earth. That's the laws of our planet. We have gravity, but in outer space, there's no gravity. So the fabric, space-time that Einstein speak of will be true if it's an invisible fabric that's bending every depending on the weight of the object and forces being pulled towards it. Now the thing is, if you want to call that gravity, the forces being pulled towards it, they'll both be right, right? But let's say gravity is about things falling down, and Einstein is right about the his space-time theory as far as the fabric, the invisible fabric, basically holding the planets up, right? And attracting and having other planets orbit around it. I know I'm not infinite in this still, so bear with me. All right. So this is what I got so far. Non-gravity, stable on the ground, something to hold it up. In order, you will need something to hold it up on Earth, like to hold objects up, like if you put a book on a shelf. But in outer space, since there's no gravity, you won't need that, right? Even though the gravity is supposed to be a pulling force, according to Isaac Newton. but it may be just a falling force. Outer space, non-gravity, Earth and others, other planets in space being different weight, shape, angle, gravity, and grounding. Now, the angle, the reason the apple probably didn't fall this way or that way, it has to do with the shape of the tree, the shape and the angle in which the apple is falling from, like what leaf, what branch, the gravity and the weight of it, right? Don't you think like an apple could fall sideways if it's at that angle? It don't have to fall just straight down. It could fall sideways if the tree and the branch is at that angle, so it'll swing sideways and still fall and hit the ground, rather than just straight down. It depends on probably the weight, the shape, and the angle, and if the wind is blowing or not hard enough. So fabric in outer space is different than Earth. Okay, other planets' dynamics may be different. Okay, Earth straight through outer space curves because of non-gravity. Now the double slit experiment come in there where planets, see these planets and the sun, moon, stars may be conscious beings. Where you could say gods, goddesses, and everything else, but they may be conscious beings. So where things are orbiting out of space around each other and they're not crashing into each other because they're conscious like you and I. They're trying not to crash. Now, eventually when things start crashing for whatever reason, one force is not stronger than the other, or they coming together to collide on their own, or one can prevent it and one can't, or one trying to and one the other can't. You know what I'm saying? But they may be conscious beings that instead of thinking of like gravity and fabric and space-time, you got to look at it as if they're living conscious beings that's trying not to bump into each other. You see what I mean? And they behave different when they're being observed or not, or they do or don't when they're being observed or not. It may make it act up or not. What if black holes is actually the pulling force in outer space? Or plasma is. Like plasma makes up most of the mass inside the universe. So what if that is the actual pulling force, the plasma or the black holes? So you got the speed, the time, the weight, the force, the angle, and the shape. Because you may have more force than me, which may create more speed or not, but you may have more force than me, but be slower than me. You see what I'm saying? Personal strength, not gravity. Or you may be stronger than me and have more force than me and create more speed. So that affects it too. So like air. See, gravity exists. It's a invisible force pulling objects to Earth. I can go with that. Now, air is invisible, but here it is. It's energy and all that. Everything is energy, but air, they know the components of which makes air air. So they probably can calculate the invisible by knowing the ingredients, like how they do. What's the ingredients to air? They know it. They know the ingredients. They got the list. So they probably can measure everything invisible besides the 5 Fibonacci ratio going in reverse. They probably can measure everything invisible with whatever science they're using to figure out the ingredients of air. They probably can do everything invisible that way and crack more codes. So it's like if gravity is a force that's pulling things together, we should look at it probably as gravity just being a force that's pulling things down, because on Earth, everything is not pulling towards each other unless telekinesis or someone forces it or not. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I can set this book down. It's not going to just attract to the phone and start pushing towards the phone because of gravity. But if I was to drop this book, it's going to fall to the ground because of gravity. So gravity may be simply as just forces that's pulling or pushing down. And space time with the fabric, well, Einstein talking about with the curve, the invisible fabric, when it has to do with space time, he may be on point with that as far as in outer space. And on Earth, we need things to be grounded in order to build on it. But in outer space, it may not be like that, to where things are orbiting due to the black hole pull or plasma being an invisible force that keeps it rotating the way it does. the actual plasma. And they both can be right. You mix and blend it every which way. So far, that's what I got. And someone was there with me because I was making an example of an apple being on the ground, was stopping the other objects to be there. And Winter seemed like she was on the same topic, and body language seemed like she was moving her body the same way as what I was getting to that point when the apple and why things ain't attracted to the apple due to gravity. Like, why didn't things move? Now, remember, you can use telekinesis to move things. The wind can blow things towards it. It's all kind of reasons things will move towards the apple that has nothing to do with what I think is gravity. I think gravity is just probably a pulling force. It's either the wind's going to blow, telekinesis, somebody makes it something to interact with it, or whatever, or not. I'm going to do more study on physics and figure it out more in detail. But so far, that's what I got. With fabric, space-time may have to deal with outer space, and gravity has to deal with Earth and the planets that's like Earth. And all the planets may have different laws in which governs them, as far as, like, say, I use this analogy, like, say a person can levitate on Earth. We'll be so amazed, but let's say he comes from a planet where levitation is natural. So it's easy for him, you thinking it has to do with meditation, but he's from this planet where they levitate. So he eventually learns to levitate, or he automatically levitates. Now, imagine a person from Earth go to a planet where everything is levitating, but you're able to stay grounded. How special you will be with gravity because you're grounded. Or let's say you start off levitating and then eventually you're able to ground yourself because you're from the planet Earth and you can ground. You know about grounding for some reason, for whatever reason, because you know it's obvious why you know. Because we have gravity and you know about the force of pulling down. So you're walking around while everybody else is levitating. You'll be special then. So that's the same thing. So they both, I could think, is right depending on the conversation. Einstein may be right for outer space, Isaac Newton for Earth, and the planets that's like Earth as far as gravity. That's my thoughts on that for now. So gravity is that pulls. Oh, what if that pulls things towards each other? What about repelling? What about if it's not pulling, it's actually pushing away? What would that be called? Because if gravity is just a force that's pulling things towards each other, what about when it pushes it away? Whether it's by force, wind, telekinesis, a person, place, or thing moving it away from each other. I really can't think too much more about that. Try to make it as simple as possible as far as how I understand it right now, but I'll get more into it. Let me see. Yeah, non-gravity. You're going to need something to hold it up. Outer space having non-gravity. That's why things are able to float in outer space. But at the same time, was maybe pulling it, making things orbit and move in motion, maybe the black holes or plasma, perhaps. Yep. All right. So the weight of something, the shape, the angle in which something falls or not, gravity and the grounding. And what I mean by grounding, like, you know how like we ground, like we're grounded on Earth. That's what I mean by that. Fabric in outer space is different than Earth. So the fabric in outer space is obviously different from Earth, because if Einstein is right about space-time is invisible fabric, unless we have the same invisible fabric on Earth and can't see it. But it depends on like the material. Like if I was laying on my bed, or I put a bowling ball on my bed and shot a marble across it, it'd probably go straight across without being pulled towards the bowling ball. And no matter how deep, well, it can be deep, but I probably can shoot the marble straight across because the material is harder. So it probably depends on the material on which the object is on, determines that or not. So on Earth, we may have more solid material. So our invisible fabric will actually be the matter that we got around us that changes the whole laws. All right. Other planets, diamonds may be, or the other planet laws may be different. Earth straight through outer space. Earth straight through outer space curves because of non-gravity. All right. Black holes, mass, and energy. We need to come up with something that's not gravity. If they don't already have how to do research on this, where it's not considered gravity, gravity be considered a force that's pulling or pushing something down, and then laws of attraction or not. You know what I'm saying? Something like that where things are attracted to each other, like attracting like, pulling each other, pulling towards or not pulling towards. Because you know in the spirit realm, they say like attract like, and sometimes like doesn't attract like. Sometimes you're like this person and they're not like you. They're the opposite. Sometimes opposites attract, sometimes they don't. So it's the same thing. But the time, the speed, the weight, the force, the angle, the shape, and the force that's behind the force, whatever's causing things to move or not move, interact or not interact, mix and blend that. They probably just need to separate it and consider gravity, like I'm saying. The force that pulls down, come up with something that, a word where it's like laws of attraction, where things attract and when they don't attract, compared to when they're being forced together or not being forced together, or being stacked on top of each other or not being stacked on top of each other. You know what I mean? I'm still an infant in this physics thing, but I think I'm on point. Did I explain that right? So if I'm on the table and I put the bowling ball on the table and shoot the marble, the material is more solider, so the marble goes straight across without being put towards the bowling ball because there's no curve there. Because there's no curve. But the curve in outer space with the fabric causes the planets to orbit the way they do. But on Earth, since the laws is different, objects are not so much orbiting around each other because of the fabric, the invisible fabric. It depends on how we place it or how it's being grounded or how it's designed. And then the time, speed, weight, shape determines how the apple will fall from the tree and what angle. Even though gravity still affects it. Gravity is an invisible force that pulls things down or pushes things down. That's what gravity is. That's what I would say. All the attracting towards each other and all that type of stuff, they need to probably come up with another word for that. And when it doesn't attract, so they can calculate it differently. Be funny if plasma is the reason outer space operates the way it do, or the black holes with plasma. Mix and blend that. That's my thoughts on that for now.